gentlemen, the crowd favorite from South Florida, Marc Winning Picks Lawrence. And now, let's get it on!
Against the spread, Winning Picks with Marc Lawrence.
Hey everybody, welcome back once again. This is Marc Lawrence, and we're all set to go against the spread with our college football playoff preview show. And joining me on the show, as he does each and every week, is our good friend Andy Iskoe from TheLogicalApproach.com in Las Vegas. Jim Feist, Victor King are off this week, and we'll also be joined by our producer extraordinaire, Greg DePalma, as we tear apart the 12 teams that we feel will be playing in the college football playoff this year. I also want to remind everybody here that when it comes to looking for winning information before the football season starts, you have to dial into the library here at our ProLine TV library, because you're going to find a ton of interviews here. Greg DePalma does them almost daily. He's got a lot of great in-depth on everything that he does. He also, at the end of every interview that he does, he also shares with you predictions on all those teams that he's talking about from the interviewee that he's talking to. Jim Feist does his regular weekly interviews with celebrity guest handicappers, the smart guys in Las Vegas. That's all available here on the ProLine TV network. And starting August 12th, our next show, Victor King will be rejoining us as we get into our AFC football preview. That's just around the corner. This is a free podcast for everybody, and I'd like to ask you to please, if you haven't yet, hit the like button down below. We would really appreciate that. Also, ring the bell while you're down there. That would be really, really good for us to do all those good things like that. We appreciate your watching. We appreciate the traffic that we get, putting a lot of work and effort into the show. We really certainly hope you are pleased. We're also going to be presenting our, what we would call the Bet Online contest, the football contest. It's going to be coming up this year. We're still putting plans in place. There'll be plenty of time before the season begins. It'll likely start for the first week of the NFL football season. So we've got a good month ahead of us to get that locked up. So stay tuned for details on entering into our ProLine TV contest, Beat the Pros contest, where you can knock off the likes of myself, Andy Iskoe, Greg DePalma, Jim Feist, and have bragging rights throughout the rest of the season here, saying that you beat these guys in the ProLine Beat the Pros contest. That'll all be coming up here shortly on the show. And with that, like I said, I asked you to please hit the like button, ring the bell, and subscribe if you haven't done so yet already. We would greatly appreciate all your help if you can do just that. And with that, I want to welcome into our show our leadoff hitter from Las Vegas, our good friend Andy Iskoe from TheLogicalApproach.com in Las Vegas. Andy, I'm going to be out your way next week. I'm going to be signing up for the contest with you. Looking forward to doing just that and having breaking some bread with you and a couple of good friends out there in Las Vegas. How are you doing these days?
I am doing fine. As I think I mentioned last week, it's that 22 versus 2 time, 22 hours of work and 2 hours of sleep on a nonstop basis. Actually, more work is involved in getting ready for the season than actually occurs during the season, because once you're in the season, it's pretty much of a routine week after week after week. What we want to make sure of in August is that we are set for both the college and the NFL seasons to begin. So that's 136 plus 32. That's 168 teams that we have to follow as far as being set. Now, we don't necessarily make plays on some of those smaller conference games, but they play some of the big boys, and you want to know, are they going to be competitive when they're getting plus 32 in playing at say Texas A&M or something along those lines. So it's a lot of work, and I enjoy it because, I've been lucky in what I do, and I guess, you guys are the same. You found a passion that you can make a career out of. And when you have a passion, 22 hours is no big deal, because you'd be spending that kind of time doing something that you don't enjoy as much, whatever hours of the 22 that you take away.
Yeah, you can only watch so many Netflix movies. I understand that, Andy. And you're also preaching to the choir when it comes to that 22-2 rule, which we basically live by throughout the course of the football season here. Greg DePalma from Prime Sports Network. I know you've been very, very busy of late here doing all these great interviews with all of these media people across the country. How are you doing these days?
Good. I'm happy to know that we still have a month to go before the NFL season begins, and we still have 3 weeks to go, I guess, before college football begins. And I'm happy that I started the interviews early this year because I needed all the time I could get to get as many of these preseason interviews in as possible. So yeah, it's going to be a heck of a next month. But as Andy said, it's there might not be enough hours in the day, but it's fun work.
Well, we're doing this podcast on Thursday as we usually do. Next week, we're going to be doing our podcast on Tuesday because I have to fly out to Las Vegas, as I mentioned here. So next week's podcast will be a couple of days early. We're going to do that on Tuesday. And this week starts the first official week of the National Football League preseason. And I mentioned that because we just put together over the weekend this puppy here. This is the second Playbook preseason football newsletter.
Outstanding production, both of them this year.
Well, thank you, Andy. I really greatly appreciate that. It means a lot. And I think our listeners and our viewers out there might think the same thing when they get their hands on this. And best of all, it's no charge. It's free to you. All you need to do is log on at playbooksports.com. You'll see the newsletter, a copy of the newsletter on the cover. Just click on it, download it, and it's free to use. And you'll use it all throughout the preseason, throughout the month of August. A lot of great information and details inside that Playbook preseason football newsletter. With that, guys, let's move over to what we're all about here this particular week, and that's who will make the college football playoff this year, this Big 12-team college football playoff. We know that last year it expanded to 12 teams for the first time, and a few surprises, to say the least, no less about that. Last year, reviewing just a little bit here, the rankings are based on strength of schedule, results, championships won, and common opponents. The top 4 seeds last year, they were Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, and Arizona State, surprisingly. They were the conference champions with the first round byes. The biggest discrepancy had to be SMU getting in and keeping Alabama out. A lot of people argued about that. Alabama had the much tougher schedule, but they lost to some unranked teams, Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, to be precise, and it kept them home during the playoffs. Last year also marked the first time for that 12-team playoff. It included the 5 highest-ranked conference champions, with at least one team from the group of 5 and the next 7 highest-ranked teams. The top 4 conference champions all received the byes. The first rounds were played at home.
Excuse me, Mark, I have
Yes.
one question.
Yes.
How did Arizona State, champion of the Big 12, rank higher than Boise State?
Well, because I think, Andy,
Lost to Oregon, maybe that close loss to Oregon for Boise? Quality of competition?
Oregon wasn't. Oregon was a Big Ten champion, unquestionably. Right. Yes.
No, but they were one of the top. They were one of the top 4 seeds.
Yes,
you had
they were.
Oregon. You had the Big Ten, the ACC, and who was the other champion in there? Boise and Arizona State were conference champions.
Yeah, Georgia, Oregon, Boise State, and Arizona State.
So
Arizona State
So Clemson was the one that was left out. So maybe that's the one I said. How did Clemson or Arizona State, who got one of the top 4 seeds, right? How did they rank ahead of Boise?
I believe it may have been more losses for the one team for Clemson, I believe, as opposed to Arizona State. But I do know that when Arizona State got in, it caused all kinds of turmoil inside of the pairings here. It left Ohio State as the number 8 seed in the playoffs, which was absolutely ridiculous. We knew that going in. How could they be the 8 seed? Arizona State, a number 1 seed. And if they met and played in the playoffs, Ohio State would have been a healthy double-digit favorite against them.
I think part of the reason is, and I think it had to do with the other conferences other than the SEC, wanting to make sure that at least there's 4 power conferences, that at least one team from each of those conferences gets an opportunity to play a second round game, meaning more money for that conference. So, I mean, if you did it based on quality, you could make a case that the top 4 seeds could have gone 2 to the SEC, 2 to the Big Ten.
They could well have. But I think that I know what they wanted to do, Andy, is they wanted to represent a team from each of the major Power Four conferences.
Yeah.
Rather than doubling up on a team from the SEC or the Big Ten. And that's the reason everything was spread out the way that it was, unfortunately.
No, that's why I wonder how Boise got one of the top 4 seeds, being from a Power 5 conference, whereas I guess it was ACC did not get one. They may be the number 4 conference in the top 4, but that's still a major conference, and maybe that was part of the criticism of Boise getting a number 4 seed, going to a group of 5 conference, as opposed to we're going to give the group of 5 conferences at least one representative each year, but not necessarily in the top 4, because I don't know the strength of the group of 5 schedule, even if that conference champion has more, the Power 5 conference has more losses, is it better that the group of 5 representative schedule, in this case Boise State, is better than any of the teams that get the number 1 seeds for the other Power 4 conferences.
Well, those home games that were played by the higher seeds, they all won at home by double-digit margins in the opening playoff game. So obviously it means a lot to garner one of those top 4 seeds, and it was proven in the results of last football season here. We all know that Ohio State won its 2nd college football title and its 9th overall national championship, but as I mentioned, they did it as a number 8 seed. There were 6 teams that made their college football playoff debut last year, largely because it expanded to 12 teams. They were Arizona State, Boise State, a couple of the bye teams, Indiana, Penn State, SMU, and Tennessee. But this is what blew my mind a little bit here, guys. I'm labeling this our incredible stat of the college football playoff. And it's just that. Of the top 4 seeded conference champions, number 1, Oregon, number 2, Georgia, number 3, Boise State, and number 4, Arizona State. They all had the first round byes, and they all lost in the quarterfinals. They went out just as quick as could possibly have been asked for. 1, 2, 3, 4, all dumped in the quarterfinals last year. I don't think we're going to see that again this year, but it caused a lot of turmoil in the college football playoff last football season here. Let's take a look here, guys, if we can, and look at what these current odds are for the teams to make the college football playoff this year. And these are current odds as of today. I went and looked at them at DraftKings. DraftKings is not a site that I recommend to anybody because they just take massive advantage of all the players, but they're also readily available with their information. So, they're sort of a go-to for the information, but I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole when it comes to playing because you will definitely be taken advantage of. The current odds to make the playoffs at DraftKings as we're speaking today, Ohio State, the favorite, at minus 400. Number 2, Penn State at minus 350. Then it's followed up by Texas at minus 330. Oregon at minus 270. Georgia at minus 250. Clemson and Alabama each minus 200. Notre Dame at minus 190. Followed by LSU plus $1.25. Followed by Miami of Florida at plus 170. And last of all is Ole Miss at plus 175. Those are last of all of the major conferences. Then at the very bottom of the 12th team, it's Boise State, the team that will likely represent the group of 5 this year. They make the top 12 as we're speaking right now at plus 190. And they don't make the top 12 because they need to put a group of 5 team in there. They just make it largely because of the odds that are being posted here. None of those odds are being reflected because they have to take a group of 5 team. But
they're a prohibitive favorite to win the Mountain West.
Yes, they are.
Which gives them a likely chance. Figure they're going to lose to Notre Dame. I don't see another game on their schedule. It's at Notre Dame. I don't see another game on Boise's schedule. Maybe they'll be a mid to high single point favorite on the road at one of their conference foes, but I don't see them in danger. And, I can't say that about the other group of 5 conferences where you could, in most of those conferences, maybe all of the other ones, you could make a case for 2, possibly 3 teams as winning the conference title.
I think my point is this, Andy, is yes, Boise State's there at plus 190. And would they have been any higher or worse had they been able to put any other team they felt power rated better than they, like Michigan at plus 200, A&M plus 215, Tennessee, Louisville at plus 300? Do they keep the lid on those odds on those teams I just mentioned because they had to put Boise State at the number 12 slot?
Well, yeah. Take a look at the number of teams. I've got, for example, and I'm not going to say who they are right now, but they closely mirror the odds. And I did not look at the odds when I put my field together. I've got one ACC. I've got one Big 12. I've got 3 Big 10. I've got 5 SEC. So that's 10 of the 12. And then Boise would be the other one, in Notre Dame, of course, the independent. So, yes, I would think that that may have affected the odds. If Boise were not going to be included there, maybe one of the SEC teams that you have listed in the also eligibles would get in there.
So we have to have a group of 5 team in this playoff.
Yeah.
And because we do, it's obviously the odds-on favorite being Boise State right now. Let me say this, in our Playbook Football Preview Guide magazine, where when we go to press, we make our predictions a little bit early, but we deal with the cards we have. And these are the 12 teams that I predicted that would be the top 12 ranked teams, at least starting the football season. If these stay true and they made the playoffs, these would be those 12 teams. Number 1, Ohio State. Number 2, Alabama. Number 3, Texas, followed by Clemson. Number 4, Georgia. Number 5, Penn State 6, Oregon 7, Ole Miss 8, Notre Dame 9, LSU 10, Miami of Florida, a little bit of a surprise at 11, and Tennessee number 12. Now, those are purely by strength of team, not so much that we had to put a group of 5 team in our top 12, because that's not what that was all about when we did just that. But I think there's an argument going on here. And Greg, let me ask you this. We have perhaps the best opening week game in college football history. When Ohio State plays host to Texas. And number 2 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes playing the top ranked number 1 seed Texas Longhorns. What a great opening week matchup that is. Do you feel that the loser of that football game, will it inhibit their chances, or it doesn't not even matter?
No, doesn't matter at all. These are the new days of college football. If anything, it'll be a plus. You want to have these games now on your schedule. Because bottom line is you can, again, we saw what happened last year. If you have 3 losses, that can definitely impede your chances of getting in. But there were reasons why teams like Alabama didn't get in. They were blown out by teams and losing to Vanderbilt, and they had a shaky schedule. So as long as you're a pretty dominant team all year, and you can lose to other dominant teams, you can still lose up to 3 games, and you're still going to make the playoffs.
What's unusual is this number 1 and number 2 seed ranking. It's the first time ever that 2 teams open the season doing just that. And I have a database of all the results of teams that have met since 1980 involving number 1 and number 2 seeds. And the money goes largely to the number 2 seed. And it goes largely to the number 2 seed because, number 1, they're primarily the underdog in the football game, which is maybe the added incentive that they need to get them incentivized or at least cash a ticket. But in regular season matchups of number 1 and number 2, because the majority of these 1 and 2 matchups are largely in postseason bowl games, but when they're regular season matchups of number 1 and number 2, the visiting team, it's only happened 6 times, but the visiting team has won all 6 football games.
Wow.
Yes, that's pretty strong.
So take Texas.
By the way, you know what I find odd about those top 12 odds?
What's
no
that?
No Big 12 representative is in there.
That's a great observation, Andy. When I was putting them together, I thought exactly the same thing. Where is the Big 12? My goodness. It looks like obviously it's going to be another down year. And in fact, you have to go down to Kansas State, 12, 13, 14. Number 16 is the closest. Kansas State comes in at plus 350. And they're not even a lead pipe
Where's
finish.
Texas Tech? Because that's the team that I have coming.
Number 18, okay? And, I'm a little bit surprised that Kansas State is priced a little bit more chalkier than Texas Tech is. And I agree with you. I think, Texas Tech is the team to beat, I believe, in the Big 12 this year. And if they do what they're projected to do, they could crash the party very easily. They could well be one of those teams. So, Andy, let me ask you this question here. Now we've laid out the field. We've laid out the odds. What's the first thing you're going to look at if you're betting any of these teams before the season begins?
Well, I believe I have, 8 or 9. I think I have 3 or 4 differences. I do not have Miami in the field. I do not have, what's the other one that I have in there? I think a couple of others that
you have Ole Miss in the field?
I don't have Ole Miss in the field. I do have A&M in the field. Well, Texas Tech. There's no Big 12 representative in there, so clearly I have one in there, and I'm trying to remember the other one. But my distribution. I have Clemson from the ACC, which is in there, one of the favorites. I've got Texas Tech, which is not a favorite, but I have them as my favorite in the Big 12. I have Boise as the group of 5. I've got 3 Big 10 teams, and they're the ones you would expect: Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. I have 5 from the SEC, and I got Alabama, I got Georgia, I've got LSU. I think those are in there, and I've got Texas, but I also have Texas A&M. And then, of course, Notre Dame.
Well, nice little bit of a list there. Kind of matches.
So I might take the ones that they're listed, not using these odds, but let's say ones I use here, Circa and Westgate, to make the field. If I'm looking at the couple to replace the ones that you have with Ole Miss, Miami, and no Big 12 rep, I might take a look at Texas Tech to be the team I would play, because the Big 12 has to get somebody to get in there. And then again, I don't have Ole Miss, so maybe I would bet A&M, who you have on the also eligible list. And as far as Miami being replaced, I think that I forget who I took out for that one as well. But that's the way that I would look for it. As far as looking at these odds that you have, I would think, Boise State at plus 190, because we know there's going to be a group of 5 representative, and you take a look at Boise State and their schedule. I mentioned the only game I see on their schedule that they could lose, will be expected to lose, and probably will lose, it's just a question by what margin, is the game at Notre Dame. So I think Boise State to make the playoffs is at plus 190 is very generous, if you believe, as I do, they will not lose elsewhere along the way. I think the gap between Boise State and what is a very mediocre Mountain West Conference this year may be better than last year. By the way, I will mention one total wins play. I played UNLV under 8.5 wins, laying minus 110. I think it's up a little bit as far as the bid goes. They also play at Notre Dame. I think they play at Notre Dame at some point during the season, but and they actually opened up as a 1-point favorite over UCLA at a game here at Allegiant on the first Saturday in September 6th. And I like UCLA in that game, but I do not. In order for me to lose my over 8.5, I have to find not 3 losses not 4 losses on the schedule. I have to find 9 wins, and I don't know that I can do that.
Yeah,
actually, I have to find 8 wins. I'm sorry, I have to find 8 wins because I've already got Notre Dame locked in there as a loss for UNLV.
So, Greg, let me ask you this question. We're talking about Boise State, and we're almost handing them the crown for the group of 5, but it's never a given. And there are other suspects out there.
And by the way, Mark, I heard you with Ken last night, and you made a compelling case, or at least a historical case, against Boise this year.
Well, yeah, Boise State.
The Mountain West Championship.
Yes. They've won the Mountain West Championship 2 years in a row. No team has ever won the Mountain West Championship 3 years in a row. So that's going to be working against them in their favor here. They'll be highly targeted this football season here again. And we all know, yes, they've had 27 winning seasons in a row, but just a winning season isn't going to get them in here. They're going to have to be champions to get in here.
Yeah. Champions, and they're going to be champions. At the very least, they can't afford a loss other than Notre Dame. And if they don't lose other than Notre Dame, that means they're going to be undefeated in conference play.
And they'll be exposed at that point.
And they'll be a big favorite in the conference championship.
So, Greg, let me ask you: if it isn't Boise State that comes out of the group of 5, what other team would you consider edging Boise State out to make the party?
The top team would probably be James Madison. And that is because they also have 2 really good non-conference opponents on their schedule. They're playing at Louisville, and they're playing at Liberty. And we all know Liberty is supposed to be the crowned Conference USA champ, best team there. And James Madison did have a couple of losses they would like back last year, but it's another year in the system. This Chesney coach is doing a really good job there. The offense, skill position players look really good again, especially at quarterback. They're deep at quarterback. Matter of fact, their backup quarterback is the kid that transferred over from UNLV last year when they were undefeated early, and that's their backup. So I think James Madison would be a good one. And we all know the Sun Belt Conference is a growing conference. They're getting more and more respect every year. So I would look at James Madison as their biggest possible roadblock. And another couple of teams I would look at would be in the AAC.
Yep.
And again, I think the AAC is wide open because I think Memphis and Tulane are going to come back down to the pack. But I think Navy is going to be interesting.
Excuse me, Greg. How does the transfer of Retzlaff to Tulane affect your opinion on Tulane?
Not a whole lot because of the fact that, well, first of all, I mean, he got in late, and I know he's a good quarterback, but let's keep in mind
he comes with baggage.
Well,
but that's not football playing baggage.
Yeah, no, it's not. Retzlaff is a tough kid, and that's what I think is the best thing about him. But I'll tell you right now, Mensa, I think, is a better quarterback. And so even though Retzlaff comes in to replace Mensa, it looks like I still think that's a drop down, and we have no idea how he's going to interject with the team. They also lose Hughes, as we know, which is a big loss. They lose Williams, a receiver. That's a big loss. So yeah, again, I think I don't think Tulane can't win the conference. I just think they're coming back now down to the pack. So I think it's going to be a lot tougher at the top. And that's why I think teams like Navy and North Texas are going to have a good chance, just as good as the other teams.
How about San Antonio?
I think they have a decent chance, but there are some holes on the team that I don't like, especially on defense. I don't know about, I think when they were really successful a couple of years, they had such a good, and I know McCown's a pretty good quarterback, but Harris was such a good leader and such an experienced quarterback at that time. And they had that Sincere McCormack running back that was such a big-time running back that was playing for them. And they also had Franklin and another receiver, I forget his name right now. They had stars at quarterback, running back, receiver. They don't have any stars now. They just have good players, and they're very well coached. So when I'm trying to look at teams that I think can have that special season and lose maybe just one game, then that's why I'm trying to look at teams that might have those types of special players. And we know Blake Horvath had an incredible year for Navy at quarterback last year, and he's coming back again, including their top two runners. And they will probably be undefeated when they play at Notre Dame late in the season because they do not have a tough schedule early on. Their schedule is tough over the last 4 games of the season, starting at Notre Dame. So
they also
what
have
happens
Army
if – what's that?
They also have Army to play at the end of the year.
At the end of the season.
And
they also at Memphis.
Yeah. And so Memphis,
Yeah, so they have that. All of their toughest games are after they start 8-0. So that's what I'm saying.
Let me ask you the question this way, Greg. Let's assume that Navy's only loss is to Notre Dame, and they beat that tough field the rest of the year. And so you take a look at their schedule and say both Navy and Boise have only one loss, and it's both to Notre Dame. Would you choose Navy perhaps because maybe it's a bit more difficult schedule in the AAC than Boise plays in the Mountain West?
It would appear so to me. Now, again, I think a lot of it's going to depend on also look at what happened to Army last year. It's a very difficult thing for these teams now, the Navy Army deal, to be preparing to play the Army Navy game, and then they play a championship game. I mean, that back-to-back thing is psychologically very difficult, as we saw last year by Army. So that's another roadblock. But to answer your question, I do think Navy's schedule is a little bit tougher. So it'll probably just come down to
it's not only tougher; it's tougher at the end of the year
Yep.
when supposedly you want to be playing your best. So you're playing your best against the best competition. I think that's also a positive in the.
But here's the thing, and this is why I think the polls politically really screw teams. Because we all know Boise State's ranked where they are right now as the top group of 5 team. That means that any other team like Navy would have to race up the polls and somehow pass Boise State. Because we know, we know they're going to, let's say they lose to Notre Dame like we think they will. Unless they get blown out, they're not going to get damaged with their poll seeding. So they're just going to stay where they are. And for a team like a Navy or any other team in the group of 5 to somehow get close to them and then pass them, it makes it very difficult, which gives Boise State a really big edge because they'd be saying to themselves, hey, we had a good encounter with Notre Dame. We've been ranked the top group of 5 team all year. We haven't lost. Why are we getting passed over by these teams that were ranked behind us? And that's why I think polling can be so unfair in those situations.
Guys, let's take a look here over at the AAC. where I know you guys, you're getting a little deep here into the possibilities of somebody representing anybody other than Boise State. And there's two teams you can really make legitimate cases for, both Memphis and Tulane inside that conference. And they both each host a tough opponent. Memphis is going to host, looking up and down their schedule, Arkansas, okay? And Tulane is going to host Duke, okay? If they can get by those two football teams, they're not going to play each other. They could conceivably be undefeated when they go into the championship game, win the championship game, and then be undefeated at the end of the football season. Now you have an undefeated team coming out of the AAC. You got a one-loss Boise State team. Let's give them the loss to Notre Dame and let them win the conference. Who do you choose, the undefeated team out of the AAC or the one-loss team, Boise State, coming out of the Mountain West?
The undefeated team.
I agree 100%.
I don't even think it would be a debate, especially because, like you said, if they go undefeated, they would be playing I know it's not Notre Dame, but it is an SEC team. And does Tulane also, if we're just going to go with this Memphis thing, is Tulane playing one of those? Because they usually play tough opponents as well early on in the season.
What about Florida State 2 years ago? Undefeated, got left out. Now, of course, that's different. It was a 14 playoff.
There were a lot of reasons, Andy.
Yeah.
Tulane's at Mississippi. So if they were somehow, just imagine. I mean, that's not even a debate. But I like
how good do you think
Memphis one's an easier one.
How good do you think Ole Miss will be as far as taking time to replace Jackson Dart at the start of the season?
I think it's going to be tough. I mean, it's incredible the amount of young quarterbacks that are going to be playing this season for all these top programs. Nobody has any idea how these kids are going to perform. Nobody. We could all make these predictions and say, yeah, this, that, and the other thing. But you make a great point, Andy. I mean, you go from Jackson Dart to this kid who, all right, is a good high school player, top recruit type guy, has a lot you like about him, but you have no idea how he's going to play. See, that's the reason why I really think Michigan has a chance to be better than people think, because out of all of the young quarterbacks out there, Bryce Underwood, all you got to do is take a look at Bryce Underwood's tape. I mean, this kid is just amazing. This kid is not going to fail. This kid is the next great quarterback at Michigan. And so that's why I feel a lot more comfortable saying that. Every other player you look at, there's a lot of talent. You think they could, maybe they'll have a really inspiring season, but you don't know.
By the way, let me correct something I said earlier about UNLV and their season win total under 8.5. They don't play at Notre Dame. The game that I think they lose almost certainly, because we don't know with Mullen coming in, he may work his magic like Barry Odom did, is at Boise, conference favorite.
Well, Greg, you mentioned Underwood at Michigan, and I think he's going to be the big catalyst for the football team. And he is not lacking confidence, that's for sure. They asked him when he came in there about what he liked taking over the program there and what he expected. He said a couple of Heismans and at least one natty. Okay.
Yes. I think he's been taking Charles Woodson lessons. Yeah.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Sure, he was recruited by Charles too. So yeah, that was a late recruit switch too. So that again, I haven't seen a quarterback like this at Michigan. Even JJ did not look like Bryce Underwood coming out of college. Look, Michigan, there's a lot to like about them. But again, I think the big reason why I think they have a shot is also because of Oregon and Ohio State lost so much talent. It was unreal the amount of players that those two programs lost to the NFL. And as much as I understand the transfer portal today brings all these new fresh faces there, it's not the same. You just can't tell me that Ohio State and Oregon are just going to pick things off what they left off last year and be this top 5 national championship team. Maybe they will by the end of the season, but they certainly aren't going to be that way for at least a couple of months.
Well, it used to always be plug and play with these big programs when they lost a lot of good players. But that was back in the days when they had to recruit replacements and not raid transfer portals to bring them in. So now they've got the luxury of both. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was at South Point last night for a great prime rib dinner and picked up one of the prop sheets that they have, which is interesting. And I'm actually going to have a secondary prop to suggest that someplace.
Was that at the Silverton, Andy, you were at?
No, this was at South Point.
Oh, South Point. Okay, sorry.
South Point. And they've done this like for the basketball champion. They did it for the football last year in a different way. No, it was last year for the NCAA football title. They had, I think it was Ohio State and Georgia versus the field. You could bet one or the other. Well, now what they have is which conference will have the 2026 college football national champion. And this, I guess, was put up recently because these odds, they were put up the 4th of August. So that's just a few days ago. The SEC is the quote-unquote top choice at plus 135. The Big Ten is plus 140. ACC, so you're talking Clemson, Miami, most likely, 10-1. Big 12, any number of teams, 15-1. And then the field is basically anybody else. So you put Boise, you get your one representative from, you're basically betting Boise as at the field, but you get everybody else. So if you think Boise could win, which is different than making the playoffs, 10-1 on the field, which is everybody else. But that's basically, Boise, they're the team expected to come out. I see Greg is putting up, I guess, some of the minor conferences as well: the American, the Sun Belt, the Mountain West, and the I think it's 3 independents this year. I would like to see a prop, and Mark, you will appreciate this one, being from Ohio. Will Ohio State beat Michigan this year? That's going to be a season-long prop, and they would adjust the odds as the season goes on. I forget how many in a row it's been, but it's been quite a number, 3 or 4 in a row, I believe. And the game is at Michigan, of course, Thanksgiving weekend, and it's the end of the regular season for both Michigan and Ohio State, and it doesn't matter if either of them is playing in the Big Ten championship next week, although in theory it just be playing for the right to play in a Big Ten championship. This game means everything to both teams, and certainly after Michigan's years of domination, Ohio State's years of domination, Michigan's had the upper hand, and that's been the one criticism of if there's one game that Ryan Day has to win this year, it's against Michigan.
Well, I agree. It's been 4 years in a row, and put the shoe on the other foot. If it happened to Michigan going down 4 times in a row to Ohio State, there would have been a coaching change, and there really was.
Unless you're Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, I agree.
He came that close to getting fired. He did. He came that close to getting. Even Jim Harbaugh came that close to getting fired.
That was for the off the field thing, right? But that was the scouting.
No, they were actually, they were not in a good space, especially during the COVID season. It was ugly. There was talks about Michigan was trying to get out of the Ohio State game because they would have lost that game like 70-0 if they played during COVID. So he was that close to getting canned.
Yeah, it was 5 years in a row before the COVID that Ohio State took Michigan out.
Yeah.
So that'll make any head coach squirm.
Well, that'll tell us something for the quality seniors on the Ohio State team this year, their last opportunity. Fifth-year seniors.
Well, what I was alluding to begin.
By the way, if they're ever going to be anything like fifth-year seniors on elite teams anymore.
Well, I do see some super seniors still out there. Unfortunately, not too many of them amongst the big boys, the power conferences, because oftentimes they opt out and go to the National Football League. But there are a few super seniors at the Group of 5 level, and it would do a person wise to be able to scout those guys out to see if they're going to be of help to those teams, because that's where they'll probably succeed at the Group of 5 level as opposed to with the Power 5 conference. My question here about Ohio State is this. It said that when you lose all this talent and everything, you just plug and play, you replace. Now they all go to the transfer portal, but still, Ohio State still ranks very, very high in recruiting. They were number 4 class this year in overall recruiting. They're not going to ever fall back recruiting-wise, so they're still going to bring in some 4- and 5-star players, which is going to meld well, with the transfer portal people that they have. So I think what I'm getting to is, does the recruit ranking matter much anymore when it comes to college football with the transfer portal being wide open as it is?
Well, that and the NIL. So you wonder how many people will stay, for example, at an Ohio State or a Georgia if they are going to be where they'll have most likely, but not necessarily, certainly not like it was in years past, make it into the NFL because of visibility. If they get an attractive offer NIL-wise that, let's say, Georgia can't match because they're committed to better players, more talented players, and they go to maybe a Group of 5 team because they're getting more money, they're still going to have visibility. And of course, the transfer portal makes it very easy to do that. I think that is the changing landscape. That I think recruiting, and I think your numbers, Mark, did you explain recruiting? Does that include transfer portal and
No.
regular recruiting, or just
pure recruiting? Just pure recruiting.
By the way, let me mention something that Greg will be interested in. And that is to make the college football playoff, James Madison plus 1,200, 12 to 1. If James Madison gets that group of 6 bid, that might not be a bad play.
And what, Boise was 2 to 1?
Boise, yeah, plus 190.
190, okay.
I'm trying to see if there are any other group of 5.
How about Navy? What's Navy?
Navy is not listed. Liberty is listed at 15 to 1.
What about Tulane, Andy?
Tulane is listed at 13 to 2, 6.5 to 1. UNLV 12 to 1. San Antonio is 12 to 1. Toledo, again, chance to make it out of the MAC.
Toledo,
20 to 1.
A MAC team.
Yeah. And I think, why do they have Louisiana in here? But they're 20 to 1. I didn't know that they were being thought of as a top.
Wow.
But,
okay.
Liberty was the one I had a little thought on. I had got to go back and take a look at their schedule, but they've built a nice program over the 3 or 4 years that they've been up there.
Well, guys, let's get down to it. Let's create a Final Four here. The 4 teams you think are going to make it to the college football championship semifinal and final round games this football season here. Greg, I'm going to start off with you.
Oh.
Who do you think arrives to the college football semifinal this year?
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and actually put one team from each conference except the Big 12 because I'm going to substitute Notre Dame for Arizona State. And I am picking Arizona State to win the Big 12 again. I'm going to take Notre Dame, Penn State, Alabama, and Clemson.
Let me mark this down here. Notre Dame, Penn State, Alabama, and Clemson?
Yes.
Okay. That's a nice 4-pack. I'm seeing last year's champion missing, but it's still a nice 4-pack. Andy.
Yes.
I thought about James Franklin. They got a lot coming back, and I can understand them being, in fact, let me see.
Franklin in the elite class?
Well, if you look at the odds to win the conference, again, I've got the South Point sheet in front of me because that's what I picked up last night. They're all between, Ohio State to win the Big Ten, plus 210, plus 225 on Penn State, plus 275 on Oregon. And then I think the next closest is Michigan at 9 to 1. So you're looking at those 3 teams being clearly ahead. I'm going with Penn State as well this year. I just think they have so much that I think Oregon has a lot to replace. Ohio State, tough to do it back to back, although it's not unprecedented. But again, remember, you got to win more than one game and certainly more than 2 games as you had to in recent years as well. I have 2 teams out of the SEC. I've got Georgia and Texas, and I've got Notre Dame.
Okay, Georgia and Notre Dame. Very good.
Mark?
My Final 4, I've got in descending order. I've got Alabama.
Number 4?
Yes. I've got Georgia, number 3. I think they've got a lot to prove this year, and they also have a lot of talent there. And I've got Clemson making it to the championship game this year. I think they're a surprise team. They're not going to be a wise guy surprise team because they're just absolutely loaded with experience.
They are even money, by the way, to win the ACC, and the next closest, Miami, at 4 to 1.
At 4 to 1?
That's a pretty solid favorite.
Yes, it is. And I've got the defending champion Buckeyes returning back to the big dance or back to the championship game again this year. So make it Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, and Alabama for me.
All right. And who is your pick to win it all?
As much as I have to fade Clemson, who I love dearly, and it's not because I'm from Ohio and my allegiance is to Ohio State, so forth and whatnot. If you read the Playbook Football Preview Guide magazine, I know when I do that every year, I'm kind of pinned and forced to pick a champion or pick a team that's going to end up being the champion. And it was very, very difficult for me not to get to Ohio State. Just a lot because of who they are, what they return. It's all about defense here. And the Buckeyes are going to be the best defensive team in college football this year. And I know they're going to be targeted. They're going to have that bullseye on their back this football season here. But Ryan Day, you look at his record here, one of the top defenses in the country, 254.9 yards a game. He's 70-10 against other FBS coaches. That's an
That's not bad.
875 win percentage. He does not get out-coached or lose too many football games. And after winning their 2 national championships, Ohio State that I mentioned earlier, they've gone 23-3 the following year. So I don't think there's going to be a letdown in order here for the Buckeyes this football season here. I say just too much talent, too much defense. Ohio State wins the crown again.
Andy?
I am going with one of the top coaches that proved it initially as an assistant for Nick Saban, and now has proven it over the past decade at the University of Georgia. And they've been playing towards the last game of the season for several years in a row now. Last year they came up close. I'm going with Georgia.
I like that, Andy.
So the 2 powerhouses back in the championship again, winning the championship again, I should say.
And who do you have Georgia playing, Andy? Ohio State?
I think probably the way the seeding goes, I would have Georgia playing Texas.
Georgia and Texas.
And you have Clemson as the runner-up, Mark?
I've got Clemson as the runner-up, correct.
Well, I have Clemson winning the championship.
There you go. Thank you very much. I like that.
So, I think Klubnik is going to have a really good chance of matter of fact, my pick in the championship game is going to be Penn State and Clemson. And I think in the 2026 draft, those will be the 2 quarterbacks, 1 and 2, Klubnik and Drew Aller.
Could well be. The kid from LSU is going to get a lot of notoriety too, Nussmeier, but we haven't even mentioned him, in this talk about.
Well, I've got him one of my 12 teams.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's time for Brian Kelly he's too good a coach. They're a talented team. They've got one more year with Nussmeier. They got to get through.
Yeah, the question I have for you, Greg, I guess, because you're the one who has Clemson winning it all. Of the teams that make it to the championship, the SEC and the Big Ten, they play such brutal schedules throughout the season. Clemson playing in the ACC, well, we said they're the clear favorite, even money to win, and Miami 4-1. Then you got Louisville and SMU as the only other teams under double digits. Clemson does not play as tough a conference schedule week in and week out, hurt them when they have to play, let's say, 2, possibly 3 games against elite competition compared to the other teams that we've mentioned as far as Final Four teams.
Yeah, there's no Miami of Florida on their schedule. They'll probably likely, if they do meet them,
in the championship game. Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that would probably be good for them too. But I think I would look at it as I think whoever they play in the first round will be a fallible type of good team. And I think they're more than capable. So I think what it'll be is that progression of, look, we played LSU to start the season. We all know we just both have LSU in the playoffs. So that's a really good team to match up with. They got a couple of good teams on the schedule. They're at Louisville. They're at South Carolina. Those are not easy games. At Georgia Tech, not like these big teams. I get that. But I think because it'll be a gradual thing. And we all know Dabo knows how to coach. That's another big thing. And to have one of the best quarterbacks in college football on your side is another reason why I really like Clemson. And I'll tell you right now, the only reason I'm picking Clemson over Penn State is coaching.
Coaching, yeah.
If I think Dabo has to go up against James Franklin, I got no problem picking Dabo to win that one.
Let me say this, guys. I mentioned Alabama, and we haven't talked a lot about them this year. They had the disappointing season with DeBoer in his first year. But it wasn't that bad of a season. It was just so many high expectations for that football program. Still won 9 football games. What I like about them is the way they handled things statistically last year. They were a 411-yard offense, a top 10 defense. And this is a neat stat here that Alabama has averaged 34 points on offense and allowed 17 points on defense last football season. If Alabama can score 34 points in every game this year, they're 112-0. 112 wins in a row for Alabama when they put 34 on the scoreboard. They're going to be how big
of a test will that 34-point theory be against Florida State at Florida State to open the season?
Well, if they can put 34 up there, I think the Alabama defense is good enough to hold fort. I don't think.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying Florida State's defense as far as Alabama's offense.
Yeah, I get you. But, again, we've got a coach here that has really got a massive chip on his shoulder from last football season here. They're pretty strong with returning production ranking. They rank number 13 overall defensively, 29 overall in the country. I think they're chomping at the bit here this football season, Alabama, and that's why I have them making the Final Four.
And you've got
I think
Georgia would be another team that could give Alabama. It's also a revenge game for Georgia, as I recall.
Yeah, and Andy, I think your point is well taken only in week one because of the fact that even though Sheridan is another one of these young new quarterbacks, he at least has a little bit of experience being in college for a few years. So he doesn't have experience as a full season starter, but he's just another one of these quarterbacks that this is, hey, there could be some pressure on you. You're a big favorite. Everybody's expecting you to play well. And just like the NFL, the college is no different. Those first games of the season, you're not in sync. You're not playing your best football. So, yeah, I could see Alabama in a situation where it's a lot lower scoring than it would be if it was at the end of the season against Florida State.
Andy, look at Florida State last year. I mean, they were next to pathetic. I mean, two wins speaks for itself.
That entire season was a letdown from what happened the year before. I think there was that carryover.
Yeah,
well, they lost a ton of talent. I mean, they were just –
but the way they recruit, that's not a two-win team.
But defensively, they were good.
Yeah,
they were good
if
defensively.
you take a look at Florida State, just on the talent that they recruit, a bad year for them would be 6-6.
I don't know. They were out-yarded over 100 yards a game last football season here, and only a 270-yard offense here.
No, that's where I think the letdown comes down. That for some reason, I don't know if the players lost confidence in the coach or not.
Well, again, they had no talent on offense. It was not good. It was ugly. And if you want to blame their coach for anything, you could blame him for not having enough talent that once, whether through the portal or through recruiting, that once all these players left, that's what you left them on offense. That was pretty bad.
Yeah, we'll see what Gus Malzahn's all about. He's got the offensive coordinator job here at Florida State, and if he can revive that offense, they could be a player in the ACC for sure.
Because you take a look, Mark, and this is some of the good information you provide with the recruiting history and the number of 3, 4, and 5 stars, and you take a look at, most teams have 0 or 1, unless you're an elite team where you might have 3 or 5. You've got Florida State having 1 from a couple of years ago, and then the last 4 years, 4 stars, which is a pretty good indicator because that's still a nice commodity. 15, 8, 6, and 14. That's 37 from the last 5 recruiting classes as 4 stars. Now, the thing we don't know is how many of those guys were with the program for the last 2-3 years, possibly going to the portal or, they wouldn't have gone to the NFL if they were just recruited. But I was surprised that Norvell came back.
You mean that they didn't fire him, or that he?
That I mean, for a program like Florida State,
we had a big buyout though. So, I mean,
they got some wealthy alumni.
I think again after nearly taking them, and who knows if Travis stays healthy, we know they go to the playoffs, and we know in a 14 playoff that year they had a chance to win the championship. So to fire him after the next year when he lost everybody on offense, I just think would have been. I don't think that would, especially with that buyout. I think it's all right. We'll give you 1 more year. Like you said, you bring Malzahn in. They're bringing this Castellanos kid from Boston College, and I'm not sure that's going to do anything except maybe get them back to 500 with that defense. They're still a couple years away from being relevant.
My accounting background comes into play when I say the question that I would have is, what was the attendance drop off over the second half of the season last year at Florida State home games?
Well, it depends. Do they count empty seats as people in attendance if they bought a ticket? I think they do.
Tickets sold, yeah. Maybe you go and you see what the concession results were, but teams. When you're used to success, it's very difficult to get excited for a team that is 2-7, and you're approaching 2 weeks from Thanksgiving.
No question about it. Okay, guys, before we wrap this thing up here, and we've got a real nice overview here about the prospective teams making the college football playoff this year. I'm going to ask you guys for one wild card sleeper that you think can come in and crash the party. Nobody's expecting them to make the college football playoff this year. If you had to make one team that party crasher, who would it be? Greg,
I got one, and I don't know if you might have it. So,
let's let
Greg go first.
What's the number here, odds-wise, are we looking at? So we have a barometer. What are we talking about here? Well, I know you didn't say championship, but
no, I didn't. But I listed the top 12 odds at DraftKings, and then the next 4 odds down to 16.
I'll tell you what. I've got the odds for the team that the three of us are likely to mention. Not which specific team, but I would imagine one of the teams that each of the teams we will mention will have playoff odds. I've got those in front of me.
Okay.
Like, for example, James Madison, I mentioned, was 12-1. That would be a long shot, but I think you're probably talking, well, that would be a long shot surprise only because there's only one spot available. I can go first if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
I was going to go with a Mission team that has a history of a successful coach, and they are plus 4. It looks like 445. No, you know what? They're not even listed. Even better. Oklahoma State coming out of the Big 12.
Whoa!
Well, that would be a party crasher, but I'll tell you what, you do have a nice head coach. Yes.
Yeah.
But you have a head coach that's playing with vengeance this football season here. And if that happened, they'd win a Big 12 conference. That's really, for all intents and purposes,
something happened there last year because they started 3-0 and they never got to 4. That doesn't. It can't be. Unless every starter was injured, and that was not the case. But there's something wrong, and not that the 3-0 start was against anybody great, but
by the way, they did have some key injuries, though. They did.
Most teams have some key injuries, though, but yes.
No, yeah, and they weren't as deep last year. So once they lost those guys, some of those guys, they were in trouble. So
because I don't know that there's any clear. Although I do like Texas Tech as the favorite there, but I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. Mission team, well-respected coach with a good history.
That's pretty wild. That's a good one.
Greg?
Well, one of our viewers has one.
Who's that? I don't see my screen. Go ahead, Greg.
Oh, you don't? Nebraska. Chris Piro says, party crasher, Nebraska.
Well, I like his thinking. I like the way he thinks. The problem is he's got to forge through out of that Big Ten conference, which might be a little salty doing that. If he was in the old Big 12, I'd be all behind that.
Well, by the way, I think when you're talking about party crashers, you would not have anybody in the list of the top 12 that you already have in from before, and maybe the 5 also eligibles that you added. So
yes, exactly.
That's why it seemed like Nebraska, like Michigan, I think is listed, and Kansas State, I think, are listed as additional teams. Although Kansas State theoretically could be there because we don't have any Big 12 representative. But Michigan would not be a party crasher because you've got them listed with like the 6th or with the 13th or 14th best odds.
Correct. Yeah, we want a team that's not in the top 16.
So I like Nebraska.
I like them too. But it's not as bold as your Oklahoma State, Andy.
No, that's gutsy.
I would say. Greg, who are you looking at? Who's your party crasher?
I'll give you one. And I probably have like 10. So I'll give you one. So you'll like this one. Vanderbilt.
Oh, I don't know. That's neck and neck with Oklahoma State.
I was just going to say
that's what I'm saying. You'll like that. You're going to go Oklahoma State. I'm going to double down, and I'm going Vanderbilt.
I'll tell you what. If they can offer a college football exacta for the national championship, that thing would play 4 figures to 1.
No, we just said the playoffs. Just get into the playoffs. That's all we need. Yes.
Well, how
would still play the parlay of those two?
Parlay playoffs. Yes, it would. Yeah. Yes, it would.
Well, how do you see them getting there, Greg? We know they're not going to win the SEC. We're pretty sure they're not. But they have to be awfully close to do just that, to get mentioned. Knock off a couple of major.
Good coach, great quarterback.
That helps. And really, if you look at it, they've upgraded. They're coming into the season, and just about every position on the team is the best it's been since Clark Lee has been head coach. Yeah. So this is by far his best team. He's got a stud college quarterback to go to, the leader among men. Again, like you said, well coached. They've got the confidence from last year that they can do it. So why not? Why not? Because keep in mind, too, not only did they upset Alabama, but I think they lost to Texas by 3. They had a couple other games against good teams that I think Missouri went to overtime, maybe. So they were that close to winning a few other really big games, and they're a better team this year. So Vanderbilt. That's why I can't believe they're 5.5 on the win total.
We'll find out about Vanderbilt in week 2, where they go to Virginia Tech. and Tech is playing with revenge from last year.
Sure.
That's what got Vanderbilt off to the really confident start.
Yeah, what really killed Vanderbilt last year was after they had that good couple of games start, they had a really bad loss to Georgia State.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna throw one out there. It's not going to be quite an Oklahoma State or quite a Vanderbilt, but I'm going to go to a conference that I think is open if you exclude the obvious favorite, and the obvious favorite doesn't get there and gets tripped up. This is a football team that really improved a lot last football season here. They've got a great quarterback coming back here this year. And who knows, if they get into the party, what could happen? I'm going to say South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah. That's not quite as brash as Oklahoma State, Vanderbilt. It's probably, I'd say, on a par with Nebraska, maybe, as far as a wild card pick.
Yeah. Yeah, they're right there in the middle. Because, hey, they almost made it last year. That was the debate.
Yeah.
Shouldn't South Carolina get in? Should Alabama get in? Well, Alabama, I think they beat South Carolina, and that's where they thought they had the edge there. But that's how close it was. And I don't think South Carolina is as talented as this year. That's the problem. They've got some key guys on defense they've lost. But when you bring a quarterback that is that talented to the table, and, Beamer's done a really nice job as a head coach. He really has.
He has.
They've won a lot of big games over the last several seasons.
October 25th, they meet in South Carolina.
If you find a team that is a nondescript team, maybe South Carolina might not be nondescript, but I don't think they're in amongst the guys with the muscle shirts in the SEC. But if you can find a team that has a quarterback that could potentially be in the Heisman Trophy race, and he's in that Heisman Trophy race, he's in there for a reason, because he's done a lot of good things. He's physically capable. He's put up big numbers. And if South Carolina knocks off a couple of teams that they're not supposed to do, and Lenora Sellers was the reason they did just that, this football team, I think, could end up being like a snowball rolling downhill.
See, I'm wondering with that analogy, if he might not necessarily vault South Carolina in the eyes of the public, but maybe become a more legitimate Heisman Trophy contender.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know what
the way he does.
Yeah, they'd have to have a game early, probably, because it seems like a lot of these Heisman winners, usually they get off to these really good starts with this big game in September. It blows everybody away, and they're on the national scene.
The first 4 weeks at Virginia Tech, South Carolina State at home, Vanderbilt at home, at Missouri. Maybe there's a game that.
Well, they could open up 5-0, Andy.
Yeah.
Theoretically, they could open up 5-0. That's a whole lot of momentum.
I'll tell you what, if they open 5-0 and he's playing well, he'll draw attention for the attempt at 6-0, which is at LSU.
Yes.
Well, and they better open 5-0 with that schedule in the second half of the season.
Yeah, following a bye week, by the way, at LSU.
And look at that. LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Clemson. Wow. Yeah. Okay. You better be 5-0.
Well, that's got to be that snowball gathering
you could
momentum.
End up 6-1.
Yeah.
Your only other win would be Coastal Carolina.
But that would be the way. Yeah. Get off to an undefeated start, upset LSU to get that keep that momentum going.
Where was
and then
Travis Hunter before this season started as a Heisman candidate, if he even was one? No, he was one because a friend of mine bet him, I think, at like 22-1. So he was.
He bet Seller. Yeah.
Yeah, Hunter. Yeah.
Well, guys, that was a great show we just did here. We could probably talk for another hour and find other Nebraska, Oklahoma State, South Carolina.
That'll be next week with the NFL.
Yep, exactly.
Well, I'll continue to talk about college football tomorrow at 4:00 on the Pigskin Friday show.
Great.
So we'll definitely go into even more detail about a bunch of other teams to keep an eye on, some surprise teams. So we'll do that on the show tomorrow. And I know, Mark, you'll be joining me on that Friday show with Jim real soon.
Yes,
like you said, NFL next Tuesday. That's the other thing. Keep in mind, this show is next Tuesday, not next Thursday, just for 1 week.
Yeah, incredible. But we're going to do it a couple days early, like I say, because I got to get out to Vegas and have some chow with Andy. And
fine dining, fine friendship, and fine fun.
And we got to do a lot of contest making when we're out there as well, Andy. So,
by the way, I got a request from, I think, one of the listeners. Will you be having the regular Wise Guys contest this year?
We're having the regular Wise Guys contest this year, correct. The thing of it is, and I'll forewarn everybody, we'd always do in the Playbook newsletter is we would print 10 of the selections of 10 of the 50 wise guys in the newsletter. It's not going to be that way this year. It's only going to be available in a wise guy contest report. But the wise guy contest will be running this football season here. Last year I'm really kind of proud to say that while I didn't do any good. But that's me personally, and just throw that out the window. I don't mean to comment on that. A fellow who tied with Andy Iskoe as the wise guy champion happened to be a fellow who works in my office. And it was unbelievable. I mean, to see him go toe to toe with Andy coming down the stretch, it's like, oh my God.
I seem to think we had pretty good records for, I think it was the best bets or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, you tied up just about every category. Yeah, it was really, really, really a great contest, and it come right down to the end. And
well, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You said there's going to be a contest with all the listeners and viewers and all that they can enter.
Yes.
There's going to be space in the Playbook newsletter. Will the results of the weekly standings or results?
Yeah, we will probably plug that in the newsletter. We'll plug our ProLine TV contest. We'll plug that in the newsletter. I don't know in what format. We'll get together with Greg and Jim and decide exactly what the best way to do that is. But we'll keep everybody abreast on that. And I think
maybe we'll have like a section 2 that puts the standings for just the ProLine TV guys, because they're going to be competing for a prize. We haven't determined the cash amount yet, but there will be a cash prize just for the top ProLine, member in the contest. So even if you wind up being like 30 points behind the experts at the end, you'll still be battling with your fellow ProLine members for cash prizes.
Whoever is not part of the ProLine staff, and we're part of that staff, is ineligible. So the top non-staff member is the one we're talking about. Top viewer, listener, reader, etc.
Let's just hope that we don't collectively all go in the toilet this year, and everybody, all the listeners, end up looking.
They'll be hosting the show next year if that happens. The rearview
mirror, we'll be taking applications.
They'll be the new experts.
Exactly. Hey guys, I'm going to put the wraps in the show this week. It was a great show. I want to thank our producer Greg DePalma from Prime Sports Network, our good friend Andy Iskoe from TheLogicalApproach.com in Las Vegas, and until next week, once again, this is Marc Lawrence. Remind you to always remember to bet with your head, not over it, and good luck as always.